Very flush. We'll start with the pledge of everything. Okay, start with
Mel, can you hear us?
Yeah, very well.
Hello.
all right. Stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we need a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda for the Operations Committee, April 2022.
I'll second that motion.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. How many public comments do we have? Okay. One day. All right. And then we need a motion to approve the March 21st, 2022 committee meeting minutes.
I move that we approve the March 21st, 2022 committee meeting minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Yes. Moving right along. Facility use. No problem. Up next will be Robert Oddie presenting today's facility use report.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Robin's just doing some data entry.
Trying to type fast. Okay, so
All right, so this is OE 8.7, develop and consistently administer facilities use guidelines. You see there the goals that we have about permitted usage, we have the applicable fee structure, clear user expectations, including behavior, cleanup, security, insurance, and damage repair, and consequences and enforcement procedures for users who fail to follow the established rules. So pretty much what we're saying in our interpretation is our following of OE 8.7 comes in AROS 29, which is the use of school facilities, and then the associated OS 29R, which are the fees that are set up for school facilities. And some of the indicators that we have are the evidence that events are being entered into, and I put down here facilities, dude, it's actually FS Direct, it's called. Okay, one time it used to be called facilities, dude, but it's now called FS Direct. And then audit our FS Direct paperwork to ensure that the agreements are being submitted in accordance with AROS 29 and OS 29R. So what I have provided for you in this packet is a copy of, first off, is a copy of our standard facilities use agreement. So these are used for one-time use, and all the schools have access to this. So if a group wants to use, say, Beaufort High to have a Rotary assembly or something like that, the school, that would be handled through the school. They would use this form for the agreement. And then the other thing that they would, and on here you see they calculate the fees according to AROS 29R. And we would also ask for that insurance. Those documents are then loaded into FS Direct to document that all the paperwork for the event has been submitted. Once that is submitted and the principal signs off on it, the principal has to approve it, then emails automatically go out to custodial. They automatically go out to our energy manager to make sure the air conditioning's on. And so that's the process.
When you say energy manager, is that like a district position or is that a school position or?
Yep, no, District JD Atkins. So
Is that a
he's
person or a company?
He's a person.
Sounds like a company that doesn't it?
So JD is our energy manager. So all of our buildings have a computerized management software for the air conditioning. So like I could pull up any building, I could pull up this room right now, change here in this room, or change here in Port Royal. So JD is responsible for managing all that, putting in schedules, making requests or things of this nature, monitoring our energy use, and also, monitoring repairs for different units to find out what units he's using.
There's alarm points in that system that he can see, and it'll help us to determine, hey, we need to send somebody out. So.
Mr. Campbell, do you have any questions?
No, I didn't hear all of it, but I'm fine.
I need to turn, or maybe turn.
Where is the speaker?
Probably up there. Is that better if I look this way, Mr. Campbell?
Yes, I can hear better.
Okay, I will try to look that way as I'm talking. So the next page are the rules and regulations for governing use of school facilities. So anybody that uses the facilities receives a page like this, which they're required to sign off on and return. So these are a lot of the do's and don'ts, such as you cannot deface the property, you cannot allow procession or use or sale of beer, wine, or alcohol. Some of the basic things that if anybody's using our facilities, these are the rules that they need to follow by. Any questions on that? I will go to the next page.
I have a question. I just did want to make sure you.
Yeah, if we could go back to the first page. So then,
Yeah.
just so I understand the process of this, so, let's just say someone comes, like you said, the Rotary comes to Beaufort High and wants to see if they can use their building. So then they contact the principal. So
Usually our office manager.
or office manager.
Yep.
Okay. And they fill out this paperwork right there.
Yep, they can.
Okay. And then that paperwork, it's online, is submitted. Where does it go from there?
The office manager, usually once they collect everything, so they're probably not that day going to be able to provide the proof of insurance, so they'd have to have insurance for the event in the school district's name, so they have to provide that. And then there would be the fee as well. That could be provided at a later date, but that's loaded into FS Direct. So the office manager would scan those documents with the event, and that goes into FS Direct.
Okay, so then when you go down here to number 6, and it talks about unless waived by Beaufort County School District, lessee shall obtain at its own expense, keep in force the general liability insurance policy. So someone might go out and get an insurance policy and show it to the office manager, and then it gets sent downtown, and then they say, no, don't worry, you don't need that.
No, we've
So-
never said.
What does it mean then? Unless waived by Beaufort County School District.
Well, the only time that there's any kind of, I'd say, waiving is usually if we have an MOU where there's provided up front. It's part of the MOU agreement that they may have to provide their entire insurance package for the entire year. But any individual event, the one thing we always require, and maybe we should remove that language from there, but we always require insurance.
Well, and you know what, I was just reading through this, and not just when I was prepping for today, but when I was reading through this and I saw that, I was a little confused because I didn't understand the process. So I didn't realize everything goes to like the office manager or whomever, the designee of the principal. And then once they have everything, it goes to Brandy.
It's loaded into FS Direct. So they would seek out Brandy if they had questions. Typically, if they have questions or need help, that's when Brandy gets involved, or if it's a multiple event or a multiple school event. So if they're wanting to rent it for a year, Brandy gets involved in that.
Okay.
If they want to rent it, go to 4 different schools in a weekend, Brandy would get involved in that. But if it's a single event, most single events the schools could handle on.
Mr. Campbell? Oh, you have more, I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to waives the fee because
So the
who has the responsibility or the privilege of being able to waive a fee?
So waiving the fee as is designated as the superintendent or his designee, and that person is me. And my standard for waiving fees is I ask what benefit are there for the students of Beaufort County, and they have to tell me what that benefit is, whether it's a scholarship or free. If it's $100 a student and they're giving 5 students free admission that are Beaufort County students, and that's worth $500, then I'd waive $500. So My standard when I ask is what is the benefit to Beaufort County students? And that amount is what I'll waive up to.
I just don't understand how it gets to you.
No.
I don't, so.
Well, they would have to ask for the fees to be waived.
They would have to ask.
Yes, so if they're waiving fees, they have to make that request. They have to call or send an email and say, I'd like to have the fees waived at this event because they do this for our school.
Yeah, generally, that those fees have been waived when there is some form of partnership with either the school or the district in terms of what's being presented or what the use of the facility is being used for that particular time. I mean, let's hypothetically say, for example, one of those after-school groups that we have in the community wants to put on something at the school as a fundraiser for themselves or as a presentation for what they do at the school, and they have to engage the use of the facility through the same process here for the most part, and those fees probably would be waived then. But they, in order to know that the auditorium is open and usable that time, they have to go to this application process for the use of it. But for the most part, since they're partners, we probably wouldn't charge them a fee. That would be that's my experience with it. Now, I've done a lot of things and outside of the school parameters, and most of the time you're not going to get that insurance waived if you're outside, but sometimes you will get the fees waived. Right? Especially if they think it's a partnership with the community.
The only other entity, if the county or another government agency asks, we typically waive those fees if it's a public service.
Okay, I have a couple questions. And it's with the liability insurance, because this came up, right? It's a participant liability insurance.
Well, there's participant coverage on top of that if it's an athletic event. So if you have
Or an
any,
adult athletic event. Any athletic
well,
event
it's any
outside?
athletic
Okay.
event. The problem is with the adult, they don't offer, what we ran into is that for any athletic event, we always require participants coverage. Well, I guess my understanding was when the adult league asked, there isn't a participants coverage for an adult. It covers children. So that kind of threw us a loop because that's not something we're used to dealing with, having athletes.
So what did we end up doing?
We ended up having them write onto their, Jennifer Staten went through it and reviewed it. So they had us added to their insurance policy as an insured. So they brought in their entire insurance policy for their team, and they added us as a named insured, which is a step beyond what we normally ask. We typically ask for the event to be covered with us as a named insured. They added us to their entire policy as a named insured.
Because one thing, when I was working with the theater program,
Mhm.
facility, trying to get the facility was a nightmare.
Partially, and Hilton Head is used all the time.
It's used all the time.
Yeah.
There was some discrepancy as to who had the authority, whether it was the principal or the district, and it ping-ponged around with everyone pointing fingers at everyone else. So, and then the liability coverage, and I'm reading here that it just gets a little capricious, right? Because it doesn't say that every athletic event requires participant insurance, but it would be good to have that down so people knew that up front. And then it says you can also require, which I didn't know was a thing, sexual molestation coverage.
That would be, I don't know what event, we'd go to Jennifer Staten, if she told us or recommended something of that nature, we'd have that put on.
It just, I mean, personally, it'd be nice to have it just really laid out. And this is, I'm looking at AON, just because
Okay.
having tried to rent stuff from, not rent stuff, but use it for the school even. I mean, it was a school event.
Just so there's no deviation from the fee or contract that the school can do. The principal has no authority to deviate.
So they can't approve or deny.
They can approve or deny, but they can't change the format.
Right.
They can't waive fees, they can't change the insurance, they can't do anything like that.
So can you clarify the approval? Because I know it goes to the, as we've laid out, goes to school into FS Direct.
Mhm.
Who, can either of you deny a request or,
Really, it's the principal that, no, I mean, it's, the principal is the one that's the final approval.
but they have.
We're kind of
district
there,
policy,
yeah,
right?
we're there as more, to assist them in through the process on how to put the process together.
So if someone, I'm sorry to be so specific.
Well, let's just say this, though, if a principal waived fees, we'd probably write that principal up as going against the AR. So it would be, they would still have the ability to approve it, but they would have gone against our administrative rules, and we might have written that person up for not following the rules.
What I'm more concerned about, because this came up, was principals having people that they like to rent to, people they didn't rent to. So is there any recourse?
I mean, that's the way we set up the AR, so it's spelled out. I'd have to look at the situations and see if there's something we need to add to make that clearer. I don't know those exact situations. If there's something we can add to make it clearer, if, you know, to help.
I'm sorry, but if does the board, so if someone says, hey, I got denied, and I think it's because the principal doesn't like me, or because I want to hold a Republican event and the principal, whatever it is, right? And they feel like it was inappropriate. Do they have recourse, or is it
Well,
just,
you look at that group, the football group, they went to the board.
and the board can then, we didn't really overrule it. We just said, hey, why aren't we doing it?
Right. I mean, you question that. I mean, here's the thing is that the final decision is really with the principal.
Okay.
Okay. If the board is telling the superintendent that they need to look at that, the superintendent's going to listen.
Yeah.
If the superintendent is telling the principal they need to review it, the principal is going to listen. So directly, indirectly, you have authority, I would say, over it. Right. And that's kind of all play out with the adult football league.
Mr. Earl,
Isn't the natural recourse is to the superintendent?
Yes.
I mean, the principal, will, yeah, like you say, he can deny it much as he like, but he don't have the power to deny it. I mean, the superintendent has
Principal does have the power.
to deny it.
Because basically, the reason we've said it in that way, the principal knows the activities going on at their school. Now, we've set stipulations, like they're not supposed to deny it for, you know, without cause. They have to say what the reasons are that
Right.
they are denying it. They can't just say, no, I don't like the person. That would not be, that would go against the AR, actually. It has to be one of the listed reasons, and one of the main things is scheduling. They have
Facility being used. But
Yeah.
I mean, if there is a reason I
Bring
go to the superintendent, it's usually because probably denied without due process in the person's mind, or they're asking for something that the principal can't deliver, like a fee waived, and that has to go to the superintendent. That's the way it's been. I don't know what we're doing now, but that's the way it's been. It's like, I don't want to pay the fee. I've got no money to pay the fee, and can the fee be waived? And the principal, and I've been working with principals in this capacity. I'm in the school, and I said, I don't think the fee can be waived now, but I'll get it to the superintendent and see what he says. And a couple of times, you know, particularly Superintendent Moss waived the fee. So, you know, that's generally the recourse. And I like it to be, you know, written and understood that way, so that people don't think they're getting, you know, biased denials, because you want the principal to have, you know, control of the use of his facilities to a degree, but in terms of public use, you don't want him to be denying willy-nilly. So I can't see it all, but I'm hearing some of the questions, and you know, I think that ought to be made clear that they do have the superintendent as the last stop. We can't do anything about that, because once the policy is set and the superintendent, this AR clears us, then we're agreeing that we like the way he's managing it. And that's the way I would look at it. And if there is a certain amount of disgruntled applicants, then we ask them to look at that AR again and make some changes to accommodate more people, or make it more specific where people understand why a lot easier, or why not. That's my take on this. I don't know, if I'm in the conversation or not, but I'm trying to understand it best I can.
Okay, that sounds good. Mr. Earl Campbell?
Yes, we, as far as I can tell, we haven't had that many people complaining. We had one guy complain because he wanted to use a certain field and the coach said could not because they had games there. You know, so I think we got to have a good policy. We have never refused anyone. And if a person want to use a field, the football or soccer or whatever, and the athletic director and the principal at that school and the coaches, if they're going to be using the field, then they get first choice. So now they can get go to an alternate school, and that have been offered to this gentleman before, but he didn't want to accept that. He wanted the one on.
To be clear, I'm not referencing the Mr. Mitchell's situation. I'm talking about Hilton Head has a lot of problems with its facility use because it's in high demand. And so we've had, previous to the current administration, a lot of issues as to who actually had the authority. And so just as an example, they actually canceled one of our school productions and they said the district had overridden her to rent it out privately. But anyways, so that's not here nor there. It's just, that's what I was trying to clarify, who ultimately can say. And Mr. Mitchell factors in because obviously some people get frustrated and feel, I just wanted to know what the process was because it is much more of an issue, I think, on Hilton Head.
Okay. Thank you.
I would say two things that have been, I guess you'd say, game changers. Number one, going to turf fields. All of a sudden, we had wanted to keep people off the fields to keep the upkeep of the fields in the best condition possible for the team. That's kind of gone now with turf fields. It opens that up quite a bit more. Now, we still don't have that in baseball or the secondary fields, but now we can open ourselves up quite a bit more on the stadium fields. The other thing is, I believe administration and the board's attitude has changed considerably in the last 4 or 5 years, that there is a desire for it to be more open and not, I mean, in y'all's OE, it just pretty much says, we shall not limit anyone for any reason without having documentation. So it's kind of come across, loud and clear. We're supposed to open up facilities. So.
And that's really what I'm driving at too. It's just understanding how that works. Okay, sorry. So that was a long series of questions. I apologize. We're now on. Oh yeah, Mr.
Okay, so just again back to the process, and I apologize. So if the applicant gives everything it needs to the bookkeeper and everything's good, the principal says, yes, we got everything we need, the fee, the insurance and everything. And it goes into FS Direct. So does Brandy look at that?
If she needs to.
If she needs to, okay, so that's basically then, so it stops there.
Yeah, if the principal signs off on it, the program automatically puts it on the school calendar. It sends out an email, like I said, to the energy manager. It sends out an email to custodial. I don't think it sends one to maintenance. So that everybody's aware, they know the times, they know the responsibilities. It's always a good idea to check in with custodial to make sure they have people available. So, I mean, this hadn't been a problem in the past, but recently it's become a problem that custodial may not have the people available to actually cover an event, especially.
Hey, Robert.
Yes.
Could someone let us in? We're downstairs in the library. We're downstairs. Could someone let us in?
Oh,
I'll go down and get it.
So this is where I'm driving with this.
yes, sir. They're coming to you right now.
All right. Thank you.
So it's possible that a school will have a function that nobody at the district office is aware of, right? I mean, it's very possible.
Oh, yeah.
So how confident are you that the process is being followed? just because I had heard that there was a meeting, a public meeting at a school, and none of this was done. I don't know if it's
That
true.
does occur.
So that
That's
concerns
problematic,
me.
yeah.
So,
That very much concerns me.
Me too.
Like from the county?
Nope.
Okay.
we do
No.
hear and we try to, it's gotten better, I will say that. So on your thing, we also encourage schools to put school events into FS Direct. Some are better than others. The whole reason for that is that if you got a basketball game or event, the office manager for some reason misses it, that space will already be reserved. So we encourage.
Mhm.
Now, like I said, some schools are better than others, and some really use it like that, others do not, for all their events.
Right.
Outside of, I'd say, 5 years ago, we find out a lot of events by flyers or things in the
Right.
newspaper. And then we call the school and say, hey, what is this? I think, I don't think as much of that happens anymore. I do hear about those every now and then. The proper recourse, quite frankly, would be for me or the superintendent to write that principal up, because they have now gone against the policy of our
Right.
administrative rule, and they did not follow the rules. So quite frankly, they're breaking the rules.
Well, and I share Ms. Fidget's concern, because you do get this kind of fiefdom. That's what a little bit happened, was sort of a fiefdom with the school, and that,
Well, I mean, if you ever hear or find out, feel free to send that my way and we'll track it down. I mean, because that in theory should not be happening. It does still happen. I'd say way less than it used to.
Yeah.
But I know of an event that occurred that you didn't know about. So.
Right. And so then that leads to inconsistency, and then
Yeah.
people say, well, you let them, how come, what do you mean I have to go through all this and
Right.
everything? So can you just, how do principals know about this? How do new principals know about this?
So that's an even better question. That is something we're wanting to work on. So we do an operation, whenever there's a new principal meeting, that we come in and talk about all the different groups, finance stuff.
Sure, I bet.
And we bombard them with a
Yes.
lot of information. And this is one of the things we bombard them with. And, I'll also remind at principal meetings about facilities use. Matter of fact, I think I did at the last principal meeting. Trying to think what I brought up about facilities use. I think it was about custodial that they need to check, because we've been having problems with custodial. So make sure that they're checking. So it does get brought up periodically. The whole use of FS Direct, Randy is wanting to do more programs with the office managers. Because
Yes.
it's been a couple of years since we did some really direct training with them. So we need to do that again. It's lots of new office managers. I know they did have a recent office manager training, and Brandy did a presentation for all the office managers at that training, FS Direct, how it needs to work, all that. So are there still things slipping through the cracks? Yes. Can we do more? Yes. We are doing some.
Mr. Campbell?
I think Trish's point, Robert, is that if we don't have a master plan of the facilities use at the district office, then we have to have a good, trustworthy plan at the principal's office at the schools, where we trust that they're doing exactly what that plan says, and they're being judicial in terms of how they use our facilities, in terms of being fair, having it used through a step-by-step process that you have in place, so that everybody who's using it is known at the district through their plan. If you call and say, there's Hilton High School being used tonight, and that master plan shows that it is being used and he knows why, and everything has been vetted, then that's great. But if it's being used and he doesn't know, then we got a problem with that, and that's where the consistency breaks down. So unless we, really hammer home these things at the administrative meetings with facility, they're not going to be on the same page, and it's likely that they won't be doing the same things in each of the 32 buildings. So that's where, you know, I think we're talking in terms of tightening it up, and I hear this process, and it's a good one. I think it's great, but we do have to have some kind of check and balance on it. You have to have some kind of check to make sure that what that master plan shows at the school site is absolutely what's really happening at the school site. And I guess, you know, like you said, administrative assistants would probably have that calendar of events that's happening a lot tighter than the principal on hand, but he should have a trustworthy copy. And that's where we have to ensure that each of those administrators understand that that's a big responsibility.
Good point.
That's what I take. That's what I understand in the conversation.
All right,
Yeah,
agree. So we're all in
Okay.
consensus here on the board. Do you want to briefly and quickly run over rules and regulations, or?
Well, we kind of-
Yeah.
We kind of already did that, unless there's any other questions on the rule.
Yeah.
The last thing that I had for you was on the last sheet, Robin, which shows the use for, the last year. Now, previous, operations committees wanted to see this to, you know, kind of, this isn't, set up in our OE as a requirement for us to report to you. So your feedback is welcome, whether you want to see this or something else or what your interest is. But this was kind of, and of course, this shows the use for 2021 school year, which was a COVID year, which was weird and it's not normal. And so, I mean, like what you do have, you'll see right off the bat, which is not normal. Your faith-based, we only had 20, that 20 is each individual event. So if you had a Sunday, that's a 1, next Sunday is a 2. We pretty much shut down for churches during COVID. And then even as we opened back up, say Battery Creek's had a church going there for a long time, but of course Battery Creek's now in construction, so it makes it difficult for them to meet there. So what you see is it's, you know, and even at the top, you'll see their school events. So that's where schools have entered their events as we've asked them to. And, you know, over half of these, or almost a little under half of these, are school events, which I'd like that number to get higher as possible, because that just, as Mr. Campbell was referring to, that's kind of forming that calendar of what's going on, because they're reserving the spaces. So yeah, I won't talk in, there's some notes over to the side on what groups or how we got to those numbers. So one of the things interesting there, I think, of course, is governmental agency use. You have 4, and that was for the COVID drive-through testings that we did, which that's not normal. But,
Yeah, I think
any questions on these events?
How about Beaufort County Council? I've noticed that they've used our school over the last couple of months.
Well, now this is 2020, 2021, so this would have been the last school year, ending in July. It would not be this current school year numbers. So if it was in the last couple of months, it would not be on here.
And basically, this is the master schedule of everyone who use our facilities. Is that what this is?
This, I don't know if schedule is the right word, but this is, yes, this is a count of everybody that used our facility for last school year.
And that's include all with 33 buildings?
Yeah, this would be all buildings, yes.
Okay.
Everything that was entered into FS Direct.
Do either of the Campbells have a question?
No, I don't. I put my hands down. No, I think it's good we keep that document there, Robert, and need to keep doing that. I don't know how we can do and get anything else from it, but that's at least we need that to know how we're using it and how we can facilitate it and how it involves our program, how it integrates with what we want done overall from our sites versus the community sites.
Okay.
Also, is there a master place in the district that is on key with this right as well?
So I guess the FS Direct, we were kind of talking about, that's the software program with every event that's listed there. All the information for that event would have been submitted and placed in FS Direct. So the office manager at the school would have taken the application, the insurance, the fee documentation, and scan that and put that into FS Direct. One of your points, how do we not know? A lot of times, if an event wasn't registered, one way we find out is they ask for air conditioning. That's our one catch on people, especially as it gets warmer. If they haven't entered it, we haven't know about it, we don't turn on the air conditioning. We'll get calls late at night or Saturday, hey, we have this event. Oh, we have this event. We were not aware of that.
Sounds
That
like
is
a
an awfully
learning
big power.
opportunity,
Yeah.
a learning opportunity. So, I move that the, Operations Committee recommend to the full board approval of OE 8.7.
A second.
The right wording? Okay, you have a general idea.
Yes. If we ever actually had the right wording somewhere, I'd be all about it, but we sort of make it up as we go.
Recommend to the full board approval. Yeah, that works.
It works. I think it's clear, it's concise. Robin's typing it in.
Second, so we're good.
Well, second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, Rob. Did Rob Corbin get started?
Yeah.
All right, we're ready for some referendum updates.
Very good. Well, while Robin's getting ready, I will go ahead and dive in. Thank you once again for the opportunity to provide a executive summary update for our construction updates through the end of March. Long lead times, cost increases continue to be encountered because of the supply chain issues, current market conditions, and inflation. A lot of this is from the pandemic. But our project managers, as I've reported now for the last few months, continue to do a really good job working closely with the designers and the contractors to find solutions for these challenges. And at the same time, they're keeping the school administration staff informed. Robin, if you go ahead and move forward to slide 5, there are 2 yellow traffic lights that appear in our month's project updates. This is the same number that we reported last month. The first one is at Battery Creek High School. The yellow light there continues to be related to potential material delays. The material delays do continue to be monitored closely, and we are putting the yellow light on there more just to be cautious. At this time, things are still moving forward on schedule. The second one is associated with slide 27. That's Hilton Head Island Middle School for budget concerns. We do fully expect to receive pricing to be received for that project at the end of this month.
We've been saying that for like 6 months.
No.
It's not that those words have no meaning anymore, but.
I fully understand your comment.
Please continue.
We are working through this just as closely as we can. We have had to go back and forth to make modifications that are really in the district's best interest to flush out before we put it on to a guaranteed maximum price. And these comments are all coming out of the Office of School Facilities. So
I would say one thing, I think we've had this conversation before. I'll throw it out there. We do have an OSF inspector that has a reputation throughout the state
For enthusiasm?
for enthusiasm.
oh, that's a good word.
And this is our first run in with him, and it's very trying. And we are working through it as best we can.
Yeah, okay.
But that is something that maybe some people may want to get involved in.
I've mentioned it to legislative committee, something to potentially. Okay, sorry.
No,
Please continue.
a quick question.
Sure.
I know she jumped from the first page, was it? What was the first page you went over, Mr. Corbett?
The first slide I asked Robin to pull up was slide 5 because of the yellow traffic light, and the next one I moved to was where the second Yellow traffic light appears, which is slide 27.
I'm asking it because I thought I see one on slide 6, that not a, you know.
What slide is that?
That's continuation.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's
Same
5 and
part,
6
same
are the
slide.
same project. The yellow light shows up on the cover. Turn back one page, Mr. Smith.
And I'll tell you what though, this board is eagle eye.
Correct. See the battery crate, that's the slide.
Correct.
And that slide sends you to slide 7 so that it addresses that yellow flag.
That's clarification.
Thank you. Good question. I guess the next slide, Robin, if we could go ahead to slide 52. I'm anticipating a question coming from the St. Helena Elementary School gym. I would like to point out the last bullet point there. We have received the entry canopy elevations that we've spoke of previously. Those have been shared with our construction manager, Ajax. Ajax is currently working to provide us with a price proposal prior to the end of April so that we can review the cost for the options that we've prepared through the architect. And once again, that's that entry that we've talked about a few times over the course of the last couple of months. Moving on to slides 68 and 69, deal with project closeouts. Proud to stand before you today. We completed and closed out 21 projects that were associated with 8% capital projects in the month of March. That's excellent progress there. For the referendum projects, a recap, we have 7 of them closed out to date. We have moved the 2 projects that are now in the closeout phase. That's Ladies Island Middle School and Right Choices to this section. And for the 6 that we've been reporting for the last couple of months with yellow traffic lights, the remaining item for that deductive change order, that has been fully executed for each of those projects with yellow lights. So that's been updated. And the last item to get it across the finish line is the final payout. Those final payouts have been requested. They're being received. And as they come in, we're reviewing them, and those are very close to coming across the finish line, and those yellow lights will go away. We do continue to talk about these on a weekly basis, as we've discussed before. Moving to slide 74, this is the cash flow. The figures there for the month of March have been added to the bottom. Our total financial expenditures now for the referendum through the end of March now total $119,539,651. The community outreach slide is the next one that I'd like to discuss. That's slide 78.
Can I pause for 1 second?
Absolutely.
Just because I don't want to come back to it. You said through April, you've spent 119,000. Was it forecasted 100?
March 31st. Through the end of March 31st, the total spent to date is $119,539,651, and I'm trying to find.
The reason I asked is just that it doesn't match up to the forecasted total, and I was just wondering, it's either 124 or 139.
The forecasted total is 124.6 through the end of March.
Oh, I see.
So we're within about $5 million of our forecast, which continues to model closer to this current model than we had historically come out of the gate with. So we will continue to monitor that. And once again, we do have at the bottom of that cash flow information related to the previous bond sales that have occurred to date in the dollar.
And these are expenditures and not encumbrances.
There's a
right?
difference. Yes, these are funds that have been paid out.
But there's a good bit more money that's been.
Correct. If we look at what's been paid and what's been encumbered out of the 344 million, the balance that remains still available is down to just under $99 million.
Okay.
So that's representing roughly 28.7% is what remains.
Thank you.
So I would add here, we were kind of excited about this number just because Now we got Robert Smalls online. Now we got Battery Creek. We're running
Over 10 million.
Yeah, we're running on all cylinders right now. So, we're 11, we spent a little over 11.5 million, which was our goal for the month previous. So we're actually, I think, lagging about a month behind.
Which is better than we did, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd be excited if we get between 13 and 14 million next month, we'll be,
Right where we thought.
we'll see, we'll be right in stride. So
Okay.
what I'd say is this is a good sign that for me, this is an important number for me, because that just tells us where we are and how much momentum we have. I'd say we're slightly behind, but we're catching up, and I'm pretty pleased with that.
And with that momentum, we will see that
Oh, yeah.
continued pace to go forward through the remaining portion of this year. So that's,
Actually, the one hiccup, that's really slowing us down is Hilton Elements. That is not started, and that's hurting us. I mean,
Eventually your coyote is gonna catch the rover, I believe it.
and Hilton Middle School is the key. I have to say, it has to get started.
it is.
Can I quote you on that?
No, it is. That's
It helps drastically. And that's a good transition to go to slide 78.
Yes.
Community outreach, Hilton Head Island Middle School. We did hold our community outreach on March 31st, where we went over and shared the project details with the attendees. We also have followed through with the future meetings for the feeder schools, and they're starting to come together. What we have is upcoming meetings to share the plans for Hilton Head Island Middle School with the Hilton Head Island School for Creative Arts. That's going to be on April 26th at 4:30 p.m. We'll be doing the same at Hilton Head Island Elementary on May 12th. That time is still being ironed out. And we also want to do an update with the Hilton Head Island Boys and Girls Club. That date and time still being determined. But just as we've done before, once we have things locked in, I'll get the information to Robin so that that information can be disseminated amongst all the board members.
And I don't want to monopolize, but it is Hilton Head, so obviously it's my, I think it's so critical because there's such a population in Hilton Head doesn't necessarily show up for stuff, and it's the same group of parents. And so I think this is excellent. Boys and Girls Club, I think, is going to bring in other parents because people need to hear it. They don't know what's going on. They have no idea. And
This will help that cause.
exactly. I think it's really important. The one question I have, having the principals in charge of outreach, like school by school, I'm not sure if that's the best model because it's kind of a cluster-based thing and you're trying to get the community excited, not just the students, right? Like you want the taxpayers and the community leaders. I'd love to see for Hilton Head, the town council come and understand and feel like more of a partnership with what the school's doing. So I don't know if we didn't have much turnout at the
No.
middle school, and I knew that was gonna be the case. Is if you leave it in the school, it's harder to get into.
So the elementary schools and the schools is to get the parents involved. I mean, going to the Boys and Girls Club is to get more of a wider community. We'll go wherever you think we should go. Any suggestions? No, I mean, anybody that's got a suggestion on where to go, we're a traveling roadshow.
Yeah.
And by the way, Carol and Freddie and I are gonna do the presentation for the elementary schools, not the architect, so.
Little lesson learned from the last
Not so
one.
much where, as much just getting the word out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like,
Because
I
the
mean,
where is fine. It's
obviously, I don't want
just,
you to
Well, I
come
mean,
to my neighborhood, but I've got a lot of neighbors who would show up and want to hear about, in thinking of the next
We will come
referendum.
to your neighborhood. You don't want us to come to your. We have gone to neighborhoods before.
We have.
For Medford, we did, so we will go to neighborhoods. Anybody that will have us, we will go to.
Yes.
But I do feel like this is me personally, that to reach out to school parents, that is the principal's job. I don't feel like I should be trumping that. That is their school, that is their community. They should be able to reach out to.
So,
And some do a better job than others.
maybe they need, maybe could use some help from
Well,
Candace.
Oh, we'll help them however they need help, but
Well, what are you
But-
trying to do when you reach out is the question and what you're expecting to get as a result of that reach out. I mean, Hilton Head it's different in terms of you know, they want, but they also expect. And, you know, they don't necessarily gonna come to a meeting. Parents gonna come to a meeting to hear what your progress is in terms of construction. They just expect that construction to be done in a certain time period, and then you hear from them otherwise. But I mean, that's what my experience is with Hilton Head School and their parents. A good selling point might be that if you sold it from a different level, I don't think you might have the people you want there, but if you went to some of those POAs, you might get a different level of participation, not necessarily their parents, but the fact is that they're on board might, you know, help create a culture or atmosphere that supports what you're doing without, you know, having immediate feedback. Because Hilton Head is traditionally, the parents are transitional too. Their kids can be there for 4 years in the high school or 8 years in the schools, and when they're gone, the parents are gone. But the overall community expects a certain level, you know, of expertise and performance in terms of the school. So that's what you're looking for, support from all of those entities in terms of what you're doing there in Hilton Head. It's a little bit different than some of the other communities. That's my understanding. Ingrid can.
I agree with you, although I think we sound awfully pompous, but that's okay. That's Hilton Head's reputation. My point is, though, with leaving it, I think you can have the principals do the schools, that's fine. I know parents, when they get, and especially because we have a large English language learner community, they don't necessarily, you get bombarded with all this stuff from schools, right? So it kind of it's hard to get parents' attention, but let's set that aside. To me, it's an opportunity to come into Hilton Head and say, this is what we're doing, you know, in our schools, and to get the community excited. Like I said, I mean, I would love to see, and I'm working with Hilton Head Boys and Girls Club, you know, community leaders show up, taxpayers, the 2 retired state superintendents of education who live in Hilton Head, who might want to come in, generate enthusiasm, because right now I do feel like, and maybe Hilton Head's unique, there are a lot of people in Hilton Head who don't know where the schools are. In fact, someone that for mayor asked me where the schools were.
What?
Not currently, this was previous years. But my point being, like, there is a disconnect between the schools and the community. And it's just an opportunity. I would think it'd be an opportunity at May River to say, hey, here's what we've got going on.
So what I'll tell you that is we'll go to anybody that invites us.
Duly noted.
Number 2, when you talk about getting local leaders, politicians involved, I do think that is definitely needed for the high school. The middle school isn't quite that size project.
Right.
I mean, now when we get to the high school, I would agree with you hard. Now, if they want us to come, we'll go. But I don't see reaching out to them and trying to get a big event with, say, the mayor and everybody.
Oh, no, I'm not saying like afford them the opportunity.
But for high school, yes, most definitely. They will need to be a part of that conversation.
And my question will be to you, what's the difference between the high school and the middle school?
Well, the middle school.
Or finance the project, I'm just put it out there.
Well,
finance the project.
Well, but the middle school is more like Beaufort, where it's a renovation of an existing building. We are going to refresh the whole building, but there aren't a lot of decisions. A lot of the decisions are made based on the shape and size of the existing building. Where Hilton Head High School is going to be it is going to be much bigger. It's going to take a lot more decisions. It has a bigger impact. It needs more community involvement. Well, not completely. It's going to be a renovated building, but it's going to be equivalent to what's the rebuilt building. It's going to be more like Battery Creek. Battery Creek is a major change from what it was before. And actually, it's going to be way bigger than Battery Creek. It's going to be somewhere between Battery Creek and Roberts.
Additions onto the renovations.
What's that?
Additions onto the renovations.
Right.
So it's gonna be-
It's
it's
not
gonna be
just
school.
gonna be.
It's gonna be
Yeah, and the way that I always like to talk about that type of a renovation is I categorize it as a major renovation. Where when you walk in, the finishes have been redone, the HVAC systems have been replaced so that you're basically resetting it so that, for lack of better terms, you're basically walking back into what appears to be a new facility.
Well, and there's gonna be some major additions that are gonna be new and are going to need a lot of input.
Right, that's the piece that we would like.
And all that's true, but just to walk you back to my main point is that there's no situation more important than the other. And I think so too many times we categorize things that way, and that's what brings the community in the district into a disconnect. Every time that we do something like that here, we ought to be actively and engagingly getting the community involved. And for so long, the community has been pushed aside and kind of felt like as though they didn't want to be involved. And now, so when they hear stuff, like, well, we go to the meeting and they give feedback, but nothing happens. So I think it is our job to include our PR department, because I'm hearing you, what you're saying and how you're saying it. You know, you're saying, well, yeah, you go to the meeting, but as somebody have to take ownership and onus in this meeting that we're having, because that was something that I've heard when y'all went into my community and then did some of this. Is that, oh, I didn't hear about it, I heard about it, oh, somebody said something about the meeting, or what the meeting is about. So people are hearing about some meeting, but they don't know what exactly going on in this meeting. So therefore, there's a disconnect between the district and the community. And then, well, every time you go to the meeting, so make a long story short, is that someone has to take ownership of it. Somebody said, I'm gonna be the captain of this ship, including our PR, as well as this committee. And it has to be we want y'all to come out. We're openly inviting y'all, and we're listening to your feedback because it's important. You have to make the community feel that what they're gonna bring to the meeting is important, and understand they are a part of this team in making this decision into what's really gonna happen. If not, then, you know, and startups to some degree, you know, they feel that y'all really don't want them to come because you're gonna do what you want to do. Even if so, then don't invite them. And that's not okay, because that's just gonna make the relationship between the community and the district much worse. But if you're going to consider what they're saying, then they bring everyone to the table and let them have input, because that's the part you might join the school. But that's the problem, that we all have to have relationships with the county, like she said, the county council, the Hilton Head Council, because this is all of our school. These are community schools. These are not private schools. This is a community school. In order, when we push by referendums, we go to all these meetings, we ask all these people to help us push it, and then they push back, and we wonder why. So this is a situation right now is what builds up to referendums, what builds up to building these new buildings that we're talking about, because of relationships. So I beg of you, not ask of y'all, that wherever you get with Kenneth Bruder, wherever you get with the communities and board members, board members know who in the community are leaders, and also who in the community will be. Who gives them, say, hey, well, we have a problem. Okay, well, now that person comes and say a problem, I'm calling you and invite you to this meeting. That's how you shut that down. So everyone has to have a chair at the table. Until we do that, then I wish luck with it. I'll leave it there.
Really good point, especially about building on to what would be a referendum. You gotta.
We have a running start.
We want to build that momentum sooner. Yes.
Okay, well, I think you've heard, and I'm glad, Mr. Smith, that you chimed in, because I always feel like Hilton Head, we're just so pompous and we want special treatment, but it's a district-wide.
It's a district-wide issue.
Now, I do have one more community outreach update. I apologize. Last night at the house, I realized I left a significant update off of the slide. Tomorrow, April 21st, from 4:30 to 6:30 at the district headquarters at DESC, we're going to be hosting another local vendor MWBE outreach event. We've invited all 5 of our construction managers that are responsible for building these projects, as well as the project managers. All of them will be there at the meeting. And the intent is just to encourage the local vendors and MWBEs that are interested in learning how to do work this year with the contractors and what type of work we have available. So that'll be going on tomorrow, and this event has been well advertised. We ran advertisements in the Post and Courier. We also did advertisements on 2 local radio stations as well. So that's tomorrow. We do those typically once a year. I think maybe last year we may have done it twice, but at least once a year.
And what I'll say is, and this is our turnout has not been as high as I would like, but what has been as high is those that turn out get jobs. I mean, you can pretty much guarantee if you've got somebody that's got a trade that we're looking for, they will get work out.
It has all the insurance and bonding.
Even without,
The
because
CMs will work with them
yeah, the
about
CMs,
how to
some of the
bridge some
CMs are better than, some of them have programs set up that will help bond those that can't get bonded. So that's not a restriction. So anybody that you know that has any interest in any kind of construction trade, let them know, because they can get work through us. There's not we have so much right.
So, Mr. Corbin, the Post and Courier, was it also the Island News and the Beaufort Gazette? I mean,
Yes.
so it's, you didn't, Post and Courier, where's that, Charleston?
Yeah, that's one of the major ones, but yeah, we
No, it was-
we put it in the alpaca as well.
Bluffton,
Bluffton News?
Yeah.
I mean, so you saturated the local market too?
yes.
How about La Isla?
Ooh, I'm not sure about that.
That's
I know the
big
chambers,
time.
we sent all,
Really?
I actually not sure.
Yeah, did you do the chambers, the Black Chamber of Commerce and the Beaufort Chamber?
No,
Okay, so you just gave us, I mean, when you just said those 3 things, I kind of, my heart fell. So, okay.
we,
Those were the examples.
Exactly, thank you.
yeah,
Okay,
I was gonna say, there were probably 6 to 8 publications and 2 radio stations. But I'm not sure.
It'd be nice to get some.
What were the radio stations, if you want me to ask?
They were the Gullah Radio and Praise Radio.
Because I will say there's not a.
Think this guy's a good job.
Well, that's
And
why
that's
I'm
one of
telling, that's,
But I think also those stuff like that, that's why I think it's, once again, just go back to what I said, it's important to have those relationships with us, because, I mean, if you said something like that out to the churches, that the churches also could then let other people know. Because not right now, a lot of people I know right now, they take script. I'm listening, when they're in the car, we're listening to the radio, they're listening to different CDs and stuff, because they don't watch the news and they don't read the paper, because they figure life is hard enough to read it in the paper and watch the news. It's depressing. I mean, that's what the young, that's what my generation, that's what even old people are telling me. I don't read the paper, I don't watch the news, I don't do none of that. It's depressing. So if we're not hitting them there, then where are we hitting them? So I don't really feel like I mean, I'm not gonna say indulge my breeze and Beaufort BS. I really don't feel like we are maximizing our potential. We have board members, we have different community members, Mrs. Bruder. That type of stuff should be put out in the atmosphere, because when I go and tell somebody, the first thing they tell me, now I go to be candidate, well, you know what, people who show up, the people who they want to show up, that's who shows up. Well, why y'all even tell somebody, how come you just not know? As a board member, I don't know nothing about it. So when they contact me, maximizing our potentials, when you shoot mass emails, you just tell everyone, that everyone know we have on these projects, we should be maximizing our potential and letting everyone know. Should no one not know about that? That's amazing. For tomorrow, we're going to say, well, we only have certain people showed up, or we're not where we want to be. But the question is, have we done everything that we could do? Could we do more? I mean, what else could we have done?
Well, the other thing I was thinking that we could do, and this is just off the topic, but inviting ACE to some of the construction workers and start thinking so they see what the process is like, what they need to do. Anyway, that's a different topic.
and Facebook.
I think Ron Corbin should make a TikTok video.
And you know much people who, but you know people who go out. I was talking to the lady the other day, who we have all these schools now who have Facebooks, and these parents I'm excited because these parents are some of them actually looking and checking on these Facebooks. We can advertise there too.
Yeah.
So we have a whole lot of hours that we can use that. it's very imperative that we start using these outlets.
And do you know if there is a Facebook post that we could all just share? You could share it, I could
Well,
share
I
it.
will reach out to Candace, and if it's not been posted, I'll make sure. it gets
Okay. Good, and then at
And on the
least we'll get
website.
all some, if we all share it,
Right.
those of us that are.
And Mr. Allen, this is just not on you. This is
No.
this is us. This is a we thing. This is something that we all must get better at. This is not a Robert Outing thing because with time, like one, it gets fine. So this is something that we all must get better at. But if we ignore it and we don't pay any attention, then it's not going to happen. So we have to be the change that we want to see. That's all I'm saying. Nothing.
Right on board with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because you guys go through a lot of effort to get the people there that want to hire people.
Right.
So we need to get workers there.
Yeah, that's not entirely on them. That's part of our community infrastructure that we have to build better.
That's on them.
Sometimes it has to come from the ground up.
Does that conclude your report?
It does, thank you.
Okay. What was I gonna say though? But I do think it'd be cool because there's all these students.
You can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, this is, that they're trying to connect to jobs, right? To keep them in school graduation and also to keep them in the area. So, I know this is a concern on Hilton Head, that a lot of kids on Hilton Head are like, there's no way I can live here, which the rent increase is not the truth. But we're developing this local workforce through our CTE programs, but they don't know the process to access. Like, I didn't know that we had vendor fairs until I joined the board. So taking them as students and, reaching out to Dr. Lovecchio and some of the other ACE programs and just say, come see what this looks like. Come see this is how we network. And if you're a contractor, you meet some CMs who say, look, as soon as you graduate, I'll hire you. I think there's an opportunity there too,
And he has a vendor list, because he also has a vendor fair for his students. So if you access his vendor list to come to your, he has electricians that go there and speak to students, and plumbers and welders and surveyors. Well, there's a cadre of businesses right there that you guys would be interested in employing. It's just, so I think that's a.
too, is that you guys need to do one stop shop. I know I'm obnoxious about it, but people, it's far away, it's hard to get to.
Yeah.
Bluffton and Hilton, and Jasper, there's a huge workforce in there that might be tapped more aggressively if we did it south of Broad. That's gonna be my
We did
nickname.
South of Broad several years ago.
I think we did sometime before pandemic, we did two. That might have been a year or a couple of years, we did two.
Is that for the referendum work though, or prior to
Prior
this?
to
That's
Prior
8%
to
work?
referendum.
8%.
Would have been in
Yeah.
2019
Yeah.
or earlier.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you just as a, for me, it's hard to get out here, and I'm on the board. You're a contractor, you're working till 5, you get off work.
No, that's the struggle.
The struggle is
And we
real.
tried a Saturday and that didn't.
Right, but what we found is that if we put it more towards the end of the day and then went into 6:30, it allowed people to wrap up, work on a job site and still make this meet.
But I had not thought of ACE. That's the first, that's
Yeah.
a good suggestion.
That's a natural fit, isn't it?
Well, kids today, we're giving them education. Sorry, I'm just sort of getting casual because we're done at 5:45, kind of, we get that talk from you. But I think one of the things with recent high school students, we're giving them these skills and career and college ready, but we're not connecting them to what they can do when they graduate. Even if that's going to college, like, when you are thinking about going to college, you have a guidance counselor and there's a process. It's not a great process. And we have this workforce that we're raising, we're homegrowing.
Yes,
And,
and it's necessary.
Then they graduate and I don't know how to get a job. And then they get sucked into a bad job.
Understood. Good points.
All right. Well, I didn't think we were gonna be done by 6, but hey.
We are. Excellent.
Oh, yes, future topics. Anybody?
How about an update on where the county is with wanting access across the eastman to
So
Charleston?
All I can say is I reached out to Jared Fralix. I just sent him an email like a week ago asking if he was, and I did not get any response. Now
So that would be a future topic.
I can call him and yes, if I get in touch with him and he asked for more time, because it sounded like they were gonna come back pretty quickly, and I
I thought
haven't heard from them since.
Yeah.
I would say are we gonna do facility condition assessment? We're gonna do that at the joint meeting with North Broad, South Broad, or operation?
I think we're gonna do that at operations,
Okay,
if I remember correctly.
so it'd be facility condition assessment update.
Will you be done, or is it just a mid-course update?
It'll be probably at the 95-ish
Yeah.
completion range at that point, maybe 98, I don't know.
I think,
95.
I think the update I got this afternoon was that we were rapidly approaching almost 80 now.
Yeah, so I think by the next meeting, we should, if we're not finished, we should be very close.
And we're gonna have a second, we need to talk about, because we're gonna have a second meeting that's not facilities focused. And I know Robin is so excited to hear about the section, but at that one, agenda setting, they said we could talk about staff retention and recruitment. As an HR thing.
We're also gonna have, we're gonna have the 10,
Yeah, we're gonna.
capital.
Capital.
So you have facilities condition assessment and capital.
Yes.
Together?
Yes, yes.
Facility condition update and capital plan go
So
together.
we'll kind of roll one, roll two together.
Or
So
just
that'll be a
one
long
8-hour one on a Saturday,
A work session,
a work
an
session.
operations work session.
We can
Well,
follow the
Along with the
line.
vendor fair,
honestly-
along with the vendor fair.
The capital plan conversation is a first dive into it. We're not expecting anything, it's just, here's where we're set up, we're gonna give you homework on that one, or you come back to the next one. So that is not gonna be a huge conversation, it's more an introductory conversation.
Talk about how we got there.
Similar like what we did last year.
Hope that that's gonna integrate with what you get from the ad hoc meetings with the North and South of the Broad committees.
You have to say it louder.
I said, I hope that capital plan meeting will have coordinated already, so we get some inkling of where we're headed in the future with Bluffton particularly, but also with the North of the Broad schools and where the numbers are going next. Well, I don't think we can, in good faith, move to another referendum unless we have done our due diligence in terms of studying and planning on where we're headed. There's no point in building schools that's going to be obsolete or archaic in 10 years. I think we ought to really look down the road at a number of things, and it's a period in education in America that things are shifting, and we don't want to go down the same road doing the same things if it's shifting at the pace it's shifting. So all of that's part of what I'd like for us to embrace.
So Mel, let me think, I agree with you 100%. But I think what we can do is have Ms. Crutchfield can talk about what the numbers mean, how you got there. So we have that kind of framework. And then I think it's a full board work session kind of thing. But maybe the operations committee, we can kind of do just a little bit of understanding the background and, preparing for that. And I think Mr. Auding said, we're going to have homework. So they're going to tell us here are the things we need to look at, because we have to have a very fulsome discussion.
Well, I think Mr. Campbell, I want to say what Mr. Campbell's referring to is not necessarily what we're going to be bringing to the operations committee meeting.
No.
We're going to be bringing more of the projects for next summer and future summers.
Yeah.
Conversation I think Mr. Campbell's looking for is more along the lines of what we were talking about last night about a joint North Abroad, South Abroad meeting, which I think we talked about April 28th, and I don't know.
That's next week.
We need to tell you this.
Oh, really?
April 28th is next week.
Yes.
Yes. Is a meeting for when?
April 28th. It was going to be the regular time of the South Abroad.
That's the art Hilton had.
Right.
A lot of people are going to that.
It
Is that their thing in the evening?
Yeah.
At 4:00?
So,
It's at
yeah, and I didn't
6.
see you afterwards to tell you that, but I do think there's a Our meeting's over, right?
Yeah.
We've adjourned our meeting.
Oh, that's right. Let's adjourn.
Okay, I move that we adjourn.
I move for John.
All right, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
If you're gonna, is this camera gonna stay on or?
So, Robin, isn't there a
No,
meeting,
he wants to stay
an
on.
NOB meeting Monday the 25th
There is an NOB meeting Monday, the 25th.
At 2:30.
at 2:30? So I talked to Earl last night and mentioned about the joint one that you had mentioned, Robert, and so I think he's on board for that. He just didn't have his calendar in front of him to remember that we already had one for Monday, so I think
Right.
that one's gonna be canceled, Robin.
Oh,
I
it
think he's
is?
gonna cancel that. Is Mr. Earl Campbell still on? You might need to email or call him and ask him if he's canceling that one to do a joint one. But Robert, you still want to do the 28th, even though that's Hilton Head, what was that? The Hilton Head
That was that little, the art,
Art League of Hilton Head Island Office of Cultural Affairs Open House at
Yeah,
Hilton Head
yeah.
Island Middle School.
yeah, that's kind of neat, seeing what they have there.
Mhm.
But I was trying to figure
You
out
do it
what,
beforehand.
what's the point of having a joint meeting?
Well, because both the Northern Beaufort County Ad hoc Committee and the Southern have tasked us with coming up with a process on how to move forward. And really, that process is gonna become a district-wide process. So it's kind of what both are asking is the same. I guess it,
Yeah.
But-
Process.
Right, but the two different agendas, but it also, I feel that the different committees have their different focuses. And now you're bringing everyone to one focus in that. I think that's a little bit off task. I don't think those meetings should join.
well, but
Because,
the problem is.
hold on. Because the problem is that we're talking about north or south. I think our focus is how can we make it better on this side, how can we maybe get better utilization out of north of the Bronx. So coming to the south of the Bronx and having a meeting with them and listening to what they, I think it's almost like you have one big meeting and be focusing on everything. I don't see how that's conducive.
Well, the problem is they're both tracks are gonna need to occur at the same time. So what Northern Beaufort County wants to figure out with, in Northern Beaufort County with the use of capacity needs to happen at the same time that Southern Beaufort County has to figure out what they're gonna do for additional space, so.
And part of it too is we need to bring the Hilton Head community in on some of that conversation as well, because some of the same issues that you see north of Broad, you see at some of at the elementary schools. On Hilton.
Right.
So that,
Middle school.
you know, the way we've looked at it is we all need to get it together to one point to proceed going forward. So that's kind of why we wanted to do it together.
Yeah, but I
Instead
know.
of running parallel tracks that some things would be addressed the same. Again, part of it's talking about equity, how we're going to achieve this equity
And that's
in
the-
both ways.
Right. And
Right, that's a big part of this conversation.
Right, but let's get some, we have one big joint group, then we need to have a south of the Broad committee enough combined. The reason why we separate the committees was for a reason. So bringing them together right now, I think that we should have a meeting before and if we see the need to come together and then we come together, but to come together at one point in time and have one big meeting. I don't see the use of it. I mean, unless someone already have some certain ideas of where they're going with this, in terms of, a preconceived notion, then I don't understand in terms of having both feet together. And that's I'm concerned about that.
That's just a step, towards getting to directions. I mean, I think it's a good idea that they meet so you can get a feel for what's ahead and how we as a board, we as a district gonna deal with what's ahead. You can plan forever, but we got one district and one district have to address all of the needs of the district. So, I mean,
And that's true, but certain people would give a different puzzle.
together
I
early
can't tell you your puzzle.
won't come with an answer to anything that I mean, nothing is preconceived. It's a idea of getting an idea of the situation, both sides looking at some of the situations. Nothing is gonna be solved in the first meeting of a two ad hoc committee meeting. Nothing is gonna be solved.
Mel, I'm gonna have to end this Zoom so that they can open a new one for the clock.
All right, thank you, honey. I'm gone.
Bye, Mel.
All